In this tactic, inspirational tactic number 11, we'll explore the negative impact of one-upping, that one-upping mentality amongst some sales managers, and the importance of creating a positive and supportive environment. As a sales manager, fostering such an environment, well, it's essential to inspire and motivate your team, of course. However, many sales managers, ones often that were promoted from successful sales positions, often believe that they are the ultimate experts in selling, and they unknowingly share their successes in ways that can be destructive and demotivating. And this behavior, it creates a wedge of distrust and disrespect due to this perceived overinflated ego. You probably don't mean it that way if you sometimes brag about your past or your success or your ability or your skills. It's all right. You're trying to impart your knowledge on somebody, but however, you do it too often and you do it in an inappropriate approach, you're going to have the opposite effect. You're going to have a very negative effect on your sales team. So today we're going to discuss how this mindset can demotivate salespeople and strain the relationship they have with their manager. And bonus, additionally, we'll share strategies to avoid this one-upping and focus on maintaining and motivating and encouraging atmosphere, one that your sales team will thrive in. We'll watch out for your bragging. We're going to watch out for one-upping. And I'll tell you how to get the right mindset around that. Let's start like this. As an inspirational leader, your role goes beyond just focusing on numbers. You're focusing on emotions. You're focusing on the mindsets, the heads of your salespeople. The numbers come out of that. The numbers are the output of your leadership. They're only as good as you are as a leader. And this is a mistake I often see with some of the past highly successful salespeople that have been moved into a leadership role. Your role now is about fostering an environment where your sales team is going to thrive. And unfortunately, that negative mentality of one-upping, well, does a lot of harm. It's going to harm your sales team. And that harm, it leads to demotivation and a disconnect between salespeople and their managers. I cannot tell you how important having a strong bond, a strong relationship, one of trust and mutual respect, that you're there to be supportive, that you've got their back all the time, like I've spoken of previously, that it's all about them, not about you. Be more of a servant to your sales team, a leader to your sales team. And this is a big part of you learning how to control some of your natural instincts, right? Aren't going to be doing this on purpose, but it's destructive if you do. And one-upping is just, it's very natural. I've seen it happen so many times. Let's get aware of it if you do it. And more importantly, how do I avoid it? What do I need to do instead? So to be sure, sales managers have one of the most important challenges in every business. And their leadership skills, their communication abilities, their overall performance directly impacts their team and the company's bottom line. You know that. However, only being results driven, it's not enough. Again, I've got to manage those minds, those emotions, that headspace. Or, in other words, I have to be inspirational. And that's what this whole program is about. But unfortunately, many managers fall into the trap of one-upping, which results in a negative impact. And that negative impact overrides their results-oriented attitude. by one-upping and using examples and what you used to do. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to motivate them. I know how it is, but I overcame it. I get it. But that's not the right way to do it. I know you're coming from the right place if you're doing it. Your heart's in the right place. It's just an ineffective approach, one that can be very destructive, building this wedge between you and your sales team, the last thing you want. You have to come across, you must come across as supporting and encouraging. You must show that you are their fan. And the hard truth, don't fool yourself by thinking your previous heroics as a highly successful salesperson has any impression on your sales team. Your past, my friend, does not impress them. You're not a salesperson now. You're a leader. And you must act and perform like one now that you are a leader. And you won't ever motivate or inspire them by sharing how amazing you were. Underscore were. That's boring and that's braggadocious. And they will disrespect you probably behind your back if you are constantly going on about how in your time that never slowed you down, that you always work harder and you work smarter. You were the first one in and the last one out, that you did everything perfectly. Friends, that's what got you promoted. Congratulations. I'm glad you did that. Just save the effort. Keep that ego in check. That's not you anymore. You're their leader. And you're going to have to act like one. Well, let me define what one-upping is. I'm going to tell you a story too. The term one-upping refers to the practice of continuously comparing, competing, and outdoing others. And unfortunately, with sales managers, that sometimes, if not often, includes all those things with the members of their team. Your previous glory days are previous. And guess what? Once you become a sales manager, they don't really care what you did or achieved. Sorry. It's just the hard truth. And I have observed this act countless times in hundreds of sales team interactions with their sales managers. One-upping is not only reserved for sales managers, but it has become a standard behavior in many sales environments. And the problem is that when one-upping is present, this creates a toxic work environment where sales team managers become very resentful and disengaged due to their sales managers bragging about their former success. Let me give you a story. Let me give you an example of how sales managers, I've changed the names, but this is how a sales manager displayed this one-upping mentality. Mark, we'll call him Mark today, promoted to sales manager. And unfortunately, as a sales manager, he had earned this reputation for one-upping, these one-upping tendencies. Now, granted, Mark has a competitive streak a mile wide, but that had manifested itself into his daily interactions with the salespeople, especially during team meetings. One day, Sarah, one of the top performing salespeople on Mark's team, came to the weekly sales meeting and she was eager to share her recent success story. She had just closed this really significant deal with a high profile client. This was a whale. She was really on top of the world and she couldn't wait to share the details with not only her boss, but the rest of the team. She was really proud of herself. And it's okay for salespeople to do that. You want them to brag a little bit. Don't ever want to have that person that's disruptive with their bragging all the time. That's a different story for a different day. But this story, as Sarah began to describe her journey, to share her experience with this client, what strategies, what best practices, what tactics she used, and some of the challenges she had faced and overcome. She noticed Mark's demeanor, his body language, his facial expression, his lack of listening skills. Instead of listening attentively or congratulating her, which is all she was looking for, as a pat on the back and acknowledgement she had done a really good job. That's what Sarah wanted. Mark seemed to act, he started acting restless. And once Sarah had finished her story and looked for Mark for this acknowledgement, for feedback, for positive reinforcement, Mark, being the one-upper, he couldn't resist himself, couldn't stop himself. And without missing a beat, Mark launched right into a tale of his own, describing a deal from several years back that he had closed with an even larger client, the one that really kept the lights on around here. And he exaggerated the challenges he had faced, the revenue it generated. He'd embellished a lot of things. He talked about all the accolades he'd received from the company, the awards, all the executives patting him on the back, showing their appreciation. And in the meantime, Sarah sits there. She had just shared her biggest success. And she'd just been hoping for some acknowledgement of her achievement. But Mark coming in and telling his days of glory, that made Sarah feel deflated and overshadowed. And this pattern repeated itself in meeting after meeting. And every time a salesperson shared a success story, Mark he was compelled to outdo them with his own. That's his weak ego. Very often, that strong, braggadocious sales manager really has a weak ego. They can't allow somebody to be better than them, and a great leader allows everybody to be better than them. They want their team to be better than them. That's the mark of success. Even if you just help them think that they're better, that's a bigger win. But Mark, no, he had his own stories. And so they just quit bragging about things. They quit talking about their successes because the sales team just always felt like their achievements were never good enough for Mark. Mark was always going to outdo them. You know this person. It may not be somebody you work with, but it may be your golf buddy, it may be your tennis buddy, it may be your reading buddy, maybe somebody you knew from college or MBA school. Always had a better story than you about their vacation, about their parents, about their wealth, about their car, whatever it is. They always had to one up because they're weak, friends. They're weak. And you're not weak. You don't want to be weak. You're here to get yourself better. Avoid looking weak by trying to look strong. Get it? And back to Sarah's story, that sales team just dreaded coming to meetings. And they dreaded their interactions with Mark. They could never come and share their successes with Mark because God, they wanted to avoid that whole interaction. Mark was just icky like that. And I got to tell you, morale in this team had really plummeted. One of the reasons why I was called in, I'm starting to hear these stories as I'm approaching how I can help this team out. And this team at one point was really a top performing team. Their boss had gotten promoted to a higher level. Mark had gotten promoted into sales manager from being a salesperson. By Mark being the one-upper extraordinaire, not only had the team decreased in their effectiveness, they started looking for other opportunities. They just didn't want to work for this guy anymore. True story. And it illustrates how sales managers with the wrong mentality, always having to share how much better they were at everything, has a negative effect on the morale and the inspiration and the performance of their sales team members. So please, as this should all serve as a reminder of the importance of fostering a culture of appreciation. Let them know how much You appreciate them, catch them doing it, reward them, recognize them, pat them on the back. It's rocket fuel. Have an environment of collaboration, open communication, and keep your glories to yourself. It's very destructive. It damages morale, creates a loss of trust. It is demotivating. It creates a disconnection. And I can't stress how important it is to have this proper relationship, this solid relationship between you and your sales team members. Don't do anything to create a disconnection there. And this is one of the key, easiest ways for a sales manager to unknowingly, they wouldn't do it if they knew better, break that trust, break that connection. Collaboration is great. You need to be the facilitator of collaboration, not the main topic of events. During collaboration and teamwork is tantamount to success. But if you have a person or you're the person who is constantly disrupting and bragging and one-upping everybody else, occasionally that's fine. That a little jostling and making fun of, that's okay. That's just good humor. But when it becomes a steady diet where it seems that you're competing with them for who's better, come on. It doesn't work, y'all. And it leads to decreased trust among not only your sales team, but amongst your sales team with each other. And when there's a lack of trust, there's a lack of respect, there's a lack of inspiration, you're going to get a lack of sales because of the demotivation that it creates. And you don't want to be that. So to be a practical and inspirational sales manager, here's the things you do need to do. One, encourage personal and team growth. Create an atmosphere where everyone is valued and has your support and each other's support, and you provide the resources for them to grow professionally. And then making sure that you catch them doing it right. Recognize each team member's unique strengths, pat them on the back for it, tell them about it, encourage them to develop further, maybe even on their strengths. Don't focus on their weaknesses. Their weaknesses are weaknesses. The better their strengths are, the better they're going to be. Focus on their strengths and draw out those capabilities to the maximum result. That's going to help you achieve common goals. And then two, be a showcase of positive reinforcement. Rather than focusing on criticizing poor performance and in turn how you would have done it better or you've gotten it done, keep your history out of the discussion. Instead, utilize on positive reinforcement, encouragement, celebrate team success, give credit to your team and show your appreciation. That's inspirational. That drives peak performance. Don't make it about yourself. Make it about the team. Remove as best you can in as many places as it is needed. Remove the word I from your vocabulary. Make it about us and we and them. Don't make it about yourself. And three, encourage open discussion. The more they talk about things and challenges and successes and accomplishments, and they reward each other with acknowledgement, this encouragement of open, honest communication makes everybody feel part of something, part of a purpose, part of a team. It helps them feel comfortable expressing themselves. And that will open their ears so that they listen to other people's opinions, maybe even your opinion or your direction. But the more ideas you can generate amongst your team to create solutions that work for everyone, you are a winner. And one-upping behavior is counter to all of that. An inspirational sales manager focuses on personal and team growth. You got to work on yourself, transformation triangle of change again. That will generate team growth involving positive reinforcement, open discussions, a collaborative environment, and that's going to change the team dynamic, which is going to change the team's outcomes and results. That's what we're getting paid for. So please think about it, go look in the mirror, recognize and address this mindset if you possess any of it, or a lot of it especially. If you want to drive better results, one of the things you have to avoid is this culture of you. You're an empowering sales manager. You empower your team. You lead with empathy. You celebrate achievements. You create an environment where every sales team member can thrive and feels appreciated and part of something. You want to be inspirational, results-oriented, and cooperative. You want to be helping them out. You don't want to be arguing with them all the time. You're leading them to success. They're only as good as you are as a leader. And by avoiding one-upping, which harms the ability to inspire, you want to help them stay focused, collaborative, open, honest, trusting, respectful. And you get there, they're going to be driven for success. They want to make you look great. That's leadership. If they're mediocre, you can turn them into superstars by avoiding some of these pitfalls I'm talking about. You're in control. You're in 100% control of your sales team, but you also control their response. You can talk and tell and lecture, yell. That's just being a narcissist. That's my armchair psychologist coming out. Greatness, great leaders must have a vision. They must be optimistic, empathetic, with a high level of willingness to collaborate. That's inspiration. So let's recap this avoiding demonstrating a bragging mentality. So let's look in the mirror. Let's do a self-assessment. In order to fix it, you need to be aware of it. You need to admit it. So self-reflect and identify, catch yourself in the future if you ever have a tendency to one-up, to be better, to tell how great you were. That's developing emotional intelligence to better understand and connect with your salespeople. You want to have a high level of effective communication and active listening, which we covered in previous tactics. The importance of you talking less and listening more, huge. Being open, being authentic, empathetic, all really important. Celebrate, recognize, throw that fuel on the fire of recognizing the achievements of your salespeople without overshadowing them. Don't be the focus of the discussion. You can admit your mistakes. Being self-depreciating is okay to a point, but balance that drive for results with a focus on acknowledgement and celebrating wins. I hope you've gotten something valuable out of this today. Super important. You know that. Do a self-assessment, avoid it, and go out there and make the positive changes I know that you're able to make and get after it.